Winless no more. The Pacers beat the Warriors to get in the win column a night after the Hawks embarrassed them. Quentin Jackson was awesome. Pascal Siakam was huge. And they got a win. And they have a new player. And Myles Turner's coming to town tonight. Ooh, a lot to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday/Sunday night, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and Circle City Spin, and today, I was in a wedding this weekend, so 2 nights of singing and dancing, and this is what you'll get from my voice today. But we're going to make it through in two. We have 2 games to get to. As a result, I watched the Hawks game late Friday night. I watched the Warriors game earlier this morning. The Pacers have a new player. My gosh, did a lot happen. They have a win. They clutched it up against the Warriors after getting pantsed by the Hawks. That was a very worrying game to me, and then they won the very next night. Myles Turner is back in town tonight, and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl is on the Pacers on a hardship. That day it happened. Certainly very interesting to me. I have a lot to talk about today. Okay, we're going to go inverse chronologically, which is funny because a lot of stuff they did well against the Warriors would actually have been set up pretty well from a scene perspective by what happened Friday against the Hawks. A lot of stuff they sucked at against Atlanta, the Pacers were very good at, or at least much more tolerable against Golden State. But I hate to keep bringing this up because at some point this is like an annoying thing to talk about. Shot making, is important in basketball. Everything you talk about in basketball is about trying to make every shot you take as a team as easy as possible, and every shot the other team takes as hard as possible. And yet, the Pacers in some of these games, including the Atlanta game, just can't make stuff that they've shown they can make before. Even accounting for injuries, even accounting for worse setup of plays with different point guards, it's still been better historically. And so they have another dud of a night scoring against the Hawks, under 36% again. And then finally against Golden State, they shoot 44.9% from the field. They didn't even have a great three-point shooting game, and they did well at the foul line in the same game. 44.9% is their first time over 44 this season. They took care of business at the stripe, only 12 turnovers, a lot of turnovers for the Warriors, and the Warriors couldn't make threes, and they got a win. And I was I don't want to pat myself on the back. I just want everyone to realize what a level of effect shot making has had on the Pacers' struggles this season when Tyrese Haliburton's on the broadcast on FanDuel Sports with Kristen Airy and Quinn Buckner, and they're asking about stuff that can go better, and he's talking a little bit about process, and he says sometimes you just got to make some shots. And boy, oh boy, is that what happened when the Pacers finally won a game. Right away, you see it to start the game. Aaron Nesmith sticks a 3, dots a 3, playing great defense on the very next possession. And Nesmith's a guy who's been one of the ones who was, prior to that game, really struggling. Then Nesmith, not long after, sticks another 3 in transition. Early in the game, his shot looked gorgeous. Then in the third quarter, my notes, and late second, that he looks hot, like he's into it. And he was hype. He had one that forced the Warriors to call a timeout. He's skipping back the like actual Aaron Nesmith vibe that you usually see that just wasn't really there, right? That was huge. They had an actual player that you expect to make shots, making those shots. And so you can talk about not like, I think Quinn even asked Tyrese Haliburton during the game, he doesn't have the same passes setting him up. And Haliburton's like, no, he just he'll get rhythm and make them. Like they believe in Aaron Nesmith to make him. And he did in that game. He also made 5 of his 8 twos. He made all 6 of his free throws after a really goofy start at the foul line. And he was just kind of the face of it, right? Because he was the guy who I think had the widest gap between what he used to do and what he was doing. But in that game, he did what he used to do and can do. Lights out from Nesmith, 31.6 boards. He was spectacular. Pascal Siakam made shots. 11 of his 18 twos went in. He couldn't make any threes. He had 27 points. And the guy, the difference maker, the big notes guy for me in this game, Quinn Jackson, you all know it. You all saw it. 25 and 10 with 6 boards and 3 steals, no turnovers. Spectacular, including both shots late in a tied game. 109 all. Quentin Jackson hits a 3 and gets into the paint. He was spectacular. That was, because of injuries, to be clear, but still, the best point guard performance the Pacers have had this season. Ray J. Dennis has had some good moments. I thought there was some sense in maybe starting Ray J, even though I think Quentin is better, to be clear, as a player. They started Q, and it certainly worked out. He was spectacular. He was even pretty good against Atlanta. He was like one of their only good players. I tweeted about it after watching that game. He had a wonderfully good weekend. He should keep playing a lot, and his clutch shots were huge. And you could tell right away, like, I didn't feel like against Atlanta he looked like super slow, but he only played 22 minutes, and it's kind of felt all season that, like, yes, he's playing and healthy again, but he was coming off a muscle thing that he was still kind of working it back. This was the first game where I was like, okay, Q looks like the speedy dude that got every fan and had me saying, hey, maybe he should be playing a lot. Maybe he should get converted. And he, like, his first basket, he just got around two defenders very easily in transition right to the cup and scored. So he was really, really great. And I put in my notes in the fourth quarter as they were mounting this comeback, which hilarious game to watch, by the way. So I'm at this wedding on Saturday, and I'm not going to watch the game. I was like, maybe I'll check my phone if somebody texts me and says something happened. So the first time somebody comes up to me, I have one really big basketball friend. He says, oh, it's 49-41 Warriors. I was like, okay. And then we're outside. It's me, the groom, and I used to be roommates. We're like smoking a cigar outside. And the guy comes out again. He's like, did you look? They won. They just won. And I looked, and they did. And then he's like, Curry was bad. He missed a bunch of shots. And then he told me the score. So I knew they won. And then when they went down 12 in the fourth quarter, I was like, how do they win? Like, they're playing bad. And at halftime, Curry had 18. I was like, what do you mean Curry had a bad night? But then all at the end, they were defending Steph really well. Jimmy was missing some shots that he can make. Credit to the Pacers defense on that. And they had a floor of offense that allowed them to finish the comeback this time, right? That's something they've really struggled with in some of these comebacks is they can get a little bit of the way, but not all the way. Their floor of offense was higher in this game. They didn't have a stinky third quarter as a result, and they were able to surge late. And I personally thought that felt the most like one, because guys who can make shots did make shots, but having good point guard play on the floor the whole game, and really for a lot more of the game is the key thing, but really the whole game, right? You just get so much more offensive pop when you have speed toward the rim or somebody who can, again, I don't view Quentin Jackson's assists as like what you think of from a point guard assist. And maybe the Pacers should break my brain on what I think that is. But like, he gets a lot of assists because he's just so quick or so twitchy that he gets past somebody and a defense breaks down and he's setting them up. That's not like how other point guards get it in an action or throw somebody open or anything. I'm not saying Quentin Jackson's a bad passer. It's just different. But he had 10 in this game. And a lot of those were that's still very helpful, right? Someone is scoring because Quentin Jackson broke down a defense, right? And then Ray J. Dennis, who cannot make a shot this season at all, but has just been like generally good at organizing things. Their offense just felt more potent in this game, and having a good point guard play in that higher floor was really, really huge to me. And so obviously Nesmith hitting shots was huge. Jackson hitting the clutch shots was huge. Siakam's clutch three, his only made three, was massive. Everybody else had 10 points or fewer, but they spread it out really well. Like a lot of guys in the mid to highs there. Their defense was better in this game. Just a lot was more effective because they could get the right tempo. And Quentin Jackson deserves so much credit for allowing that to all be possible. So really nice win. They got some really easy shots against the Warriors zone. Johnny Furphy's defense was terrific. Tyrese was hilarious on the broadcast to me because he was just completely locked into the game and would like skip answering questions. So the only other note I have from this game, Tony Bradley, the backup center. I think that should stick. He's been better than, quite frankly, he's been more consistent, I think, than Jackson or Huff. Those two have higher peaks than he does. Like Jackson's rebounding was good in this game, and his defense can be better because he's so mobile. When Huff hits shots eventually, I assume he'll play again. But right now, Tony Bradley should be the backup center. This was the first game that he truly was in the rotation as the backup five, and it worked. He deserves that. Before the game, something happened that I want to talk about now. This already happened, so I'm way behind. I'm not going to explain to you who he is. You already played the game, but Jeremiah Robinson Earl signed with the Pacers on a 10-day hardship. I think I explained on this podcast why that could be possible in the future, but wasn't at the time that the Grizzlies did such a thing. He played in the game, right? So you guys have seen him play 6 minutes. He missed a shot. He had a rebound. He didn't do a whole lot, but he's on the team. That means the Pacers have 4 players who are guaranteed to be out for 2 weeks from the day that they made that signing, which was on Saturday. And it had to be 4 players who had already missed 3 games, which means it was among the 6-man crew of, okay, so they're out players, first of all, were Haliburton, Toppin, Mathurin, McConnell, Jones, and Nembhard. That's Cam Jones. And Toppin hadn't missed 3 games yet, right? That Warriors game would have been his 3rd. It would have been Dallas, Atlanta, and Golden State. So I need interpretation on if the game that you get hurt in counts, because if it does not, that means that Haliburton, we know, is going to be out that long. Mathurin, we know, is going to be out that long. They've both missed 3. That's easy. That means that 2 of McConnell, Jones, and Nembhard are going to be out for 2 weeks, which is possible, right? The timeline we got from Carlisle for Nembhard was ask on the 9th. That's a week from me talking right now. And, only a week after that, if he returned then, they have a home game against Toronto, right? That's not impossible to me that he'd be out 38 days with a hamstring strain. Cam Jones, we have no idea on the back thing. We were given the November 9th thing as well. So it's possible that those 2 are out. It's possible the interpretation of the rule is different, but that is my immediate takeaway, given what I believe the rules to be is I would not expect either Cam Jones or TJ McConnell to play until like November 15th or 16th now. But that is, again, that could be wrong. It could be that Toppin counted as one of the players because of the game he actually left, but I believe that to be true. Because just given what we know of Nembhard's progression at this point, but we'll see. We don't really know anything. They've been quieter about timelines this year in Robinson Earl. They need front court depth, clearly, right? Without Toppin, they were playing 2 centers together. Jarris would playing up, and Jarris playing up is fine, but Jarris is also starting, right? So there's only a limited amount of versatility in role you can have with him. And so when you can rock off the bench with Furphy at the 4 normally, and then your center, and then Dennis and Shepard, and then you have Peter as an option if you want to go smaller. You have Robinson Earl as an option if you want to go bigger. Mac McClung was serviceable when he played. They just have options, like positional options. All those guys are very different. So it makes sense why he specifically was brought in, and a power forward specifically was brought in. I do not believe he was one of the 3 guys they worked out in Dallas last week. I don't know that, but I suspect that. But I do believe he's a good fit and makes sense. And look at that. He played in the game and they won. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about the Atlanta game. It's 2 games ago. You guys have already digested it. There was a more recent game. And then Justin Garcia from Locked On Bucks and I are going to talk about Myles Turner's return tonight, what we expect that to be like, the 2 teams to this point, etc. But first, we're talking Hawks coming right up here on Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, I need to tell you about 2 wonderful groups of people. First up is Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. You play for the win, not just on game day, every day. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. You can trade stocks and ETFs and options, futures, and crypto all right on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's Legends Advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood Strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. We're also going to very quickly talk about the good people over at Game Time. Best place to get tickets for sporting events. Basketball season's here, and nothing beats being in the arena between waiting and queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, though. Getting those tickets can be a headache, but it's easy when you're using Game Time. They come in and give fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. They can help you grab seats for Pacers Bucks or Pacers Nets this week. You can get great seats in minutes. You see what you pay with no hidden fees. You know what your seat view is going to be before you even show up in the arena. They have zone deals where you just pick your section. They say, yes, this is the one for you. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKDOWNNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off on Game Time. Swipe, ticket, tap, and go. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day your second listen. Things are happening in the NBA, but Josh Hart's injury, I was just reading about it. Sounds kind of crazy and scary for him. The Knicks are not starting particularly well. They're 2-3. They're currently playing the mighty undefeated Chicago Bulls, which is a crazy thing to say also. So check out Locked On Bulls or Locked On Knicks for your second listen. I'm going to go briefly on the Hawks game. I honestly probably should have put Robinson Earl in this section, but he was in my notes for Saturday instead of Friday. Because this is 2 games ago. You guys have all seen it and heard it and digested it, and then watch another game and watch the Pacers adjust to it. This game was alarming. I mean, it's interesting because one thing happened, and that's that the shot-making woes continued, right? They shot 35.4% in the game, 27.7% from 3. If you want to know, by the way, how bad their shot-making was before beating the Warriors, I've already explained it, but they shot under 36% on Wednesday and Friday. That was the 3rd time in franchise history ever, decades, that they had done 2 games in a row under 36%. So if you're saying injuries are why they're missing shots, that's just wrong. They just aren't making them. There doesn't have to be a reason. They're just playing really bad, or they were. In this game, they were dreadful. Neesmith struggled again, 3 for 11. Shepard's shot looks horrible. I know I'm taking on water on Shepherd Island. I'm not selling, but my waterfront property is now much more of a waterfront property. I'm not moving, but He's also had some tougher defensive moments this year that I'm gritting my teeth through. Like stuff, they started up 18-6, but they were just making some toughies. And then you look on the other end and like Jalen Johnson's just walking to the rim. Dyson Daniels just skates around somebody. Like it was so easy that it was a strange combination of one pathetic thing that will get better, and that's them making shots, and one pathetic thing that was just like, can they guard anybody? Are they going to guard anybody in this game? And I didn't look at the box score at all watching this. I sped run watching it, basically, like skip all the free throws, skip commercials, etc., because I had to get up early the next day for the wedding. And I looked at today after watching both games, 74-38 points in the paint. Right? They couldn't keep the Hawks away. It was awful, and they just had no chance. So yes, they went up big early. After that, from that point on, from being up 12 in the first quarter on, they lost the game by 32, right? Like they got blasted in that game. They played very poorly in many ways. And like that, there were some stuff with the bench. It's like they just need more size. Like they're running Mac McClung off a floppy, and then it's him or Ray J. Dennis having to initiate. The second Pascal Siakam gets doubled below the free throw line, they couldn't really like get anything going or get it popping how they wanted. Like it just wasn't great. The only thing that really popped to me in a positive way in the first half, J Hub was like balling on the glass. He had 4 offensive rebounds. He had 2 blocks. He's been really interesting because the 3-pointer that seemed like it could be a weapon for him has just been dreadful. And he's actually done better at other stuff. Like on the glass and blocking shots, he's been at least somewhat effective. And Quentin Jackson was pretty good in some of this game, not all of it. I think Mac McClung had a good second half, bad first half. Quentin Jackson was kind of the opposite. But like it was so weird seeing Nickeil Alexander-Walker dribble up, reject a screen, and just easily get around Aaron Nesmith. Like that should be their best perimeter defender. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker's good, but it shouldn't be like cakewalk to the rim good, and that was their first night of the back-to-back, right? It was just so weird. Kristaps Porzingis being guarded by Jarris, just turns, dribbles once, he's inches from the basket, easy. But it's like, what is going on? Keaton Wallace gets right by Pascal Siakam. I noted a bunch of these that I was just like, what is happening? So that was the third quarter was just their season in a nutshell. They couldn't guard anybody on Atlanta. They couldn't make anything. J-Hub was short on every 3 in that quarter. Just a lot of bad, right? And that game was alarming to me for a couple reasons. One, all the stuff I just said, they played horrible. The NBA Cup start is not good. But 2, because Furby didn't play. Like I've talked a little bit about this on this podcast, but like that one is so tough to walk away from if you're the Pacers, from just like, you don't get to learn anything, right? Okay, you miss shots, whatever. You can't do anything about that. But you don't get to lose by 20, but also be like, well, thank God we got Cam Jones doing this or Johnny Furphy doing that. Like, don't get me wrong. It's good that Shepard's playing 30 minutes and that Jarris Walker's playing almost 30 minutes. And some of these, Isaiah Jackson's playing 27. Taylor Peters getting any court time. Like, they're not developing nothing, but some of their like more key young guys aren't even playing. So it's just a very tricky game to walk away from as the Pacers, because you get hammered and nothing you can learn or hope to learn is even happening as much as you want. But then they win the next night, and it's like, okay, good. They can make shots. They can defend better than that. They know what they're capable of. Like the team that showed up Saturday night was much closer to the one that I thought would be there all year. Granted, they've been so hurt. So we'll see where this trends, because it was 2 very, very opposite games, and their next 2 opponents are very, very opposite. They play a pretty good Bucks team on Monday and a just dreadful, god-awful Nets team on Wednesday. One of 2 winless teams remaining in the league, but I think it was very interesting to watch these games chronologically, because the Hawks game, I was like, oh man, like they're doing all these terrible things. And then they corrected a lot of them against Golden State. So perhaps trending in the right direction. And now they've played, I should be able to do math, 7 games, right? 6 games, 7 games. And no, I was wrong. They've played 6 games. What am I saying? And in 4 of the 6, they either won or were like a play away from winning. Like they're not far from not being 1-5, but they are. So how they continue now will be telling. But if guys can get rhythm to shoot and make them, like Aaron Nesmith showed is possible against Golden State, and if their defense continues and their rebounding continues to be like decent to solid, yeah, they can win games. They can beat, like Golden State's good. They can beat good teams, but it's going to be hard to do that. Their margin for error was very small. It was tied late. But finally, for a team that had been just so close but couldn't do it, they got some possessions in their favor. The Bucks, the rivals, they're in town tonight. Justin Garcia from Locked On Bucks and I last Thursday chatted a lot about what that game could look like in Myles Turner's return. I cut up a lot of parts of it. So the first 10 minutes we talked about Myles. I'm leaving all that in. And then at the end, I actually asked him about the Bucks, how injured the Bucks were after their title season in 2021. In fact, I want to make this a theme this season, is asking hosts of teams who won championships or were in the finals about the season after and what it revealed. And the Bucks were very hurt. They only had 1 player who played in the 70s in games. Everybody else was 60s or lower. So Justin provided some good insight on that. So that's coming up here to close out today's Locked On Pacers. But first, everybody, let me tell you about Rugiet. Let's be real. Making excuses does not solve anything. We've heard it before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that is where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You can connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments, and if prescribed, your treatment ships directly and discreetly to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private. It's handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses. Start making moves. And we're back here on Locked On Pacers. Here comes Justin Garcia from Locked On Bucks so we can talk Pacers Bucks tonight. And Myles Turner, for the first time ever, and the first time since 2015 as a visitor, playing against the Pacers.
Yeah, it's already here. Myles Turner returns to Indiana. I mean, I guess let's just start with this. What do you expect the reception to be?
Well, Justin, it's not often you can get the two hosts who cover the teams that have won the East and the NBA Cup together. I mean, that is the real Pacers and Bucks synergy, right?
Not
yeah, it's going to be.
They weren't a part of rivalry week.
Which is so rivalry week is so dumb. There was a Bucks Heat game one year that I was like, these are not rivals. But anyway,
well, I mean, it's Bucks Thunder this year.
Yeah, well, they got to get the Cup rematch anyway. Myles Turner's return is going to be fascinating to me because 10 years is forever in the NBA, right? As you know, and it's so rare that a player is there for that long. And I have like a basketball take, and the Warriors really put this in me, but like, when you as a fan of a team see a player like grow up and go through both lows and highs, you become more attached to them, even in their low moments and high moments. And that happened with Myles Turner with the Pacers. And then they were half of a game away from winning a championship. And the thought was like, yep, they're going to keep him easy peasy. They'll have, a pretty good team this year. And then when Haliburton's back, they'll be a contender for however long they have the score. And then he went to the Bucks. And the reasoning as it came out after was pretty clearly money, and the Pacers did not offer. TBD on if they would have or did offer the years, but certainly less money. And if it had just been that, I think fans in Indiana would have been like, this sucks for us. We're bad you did this, but like, we get it, right? That happens to a billion players in NBA history who get offered a lot of money and they take the most money. I think what's going to be interesting about the reception is everything he said since has been viewed through a lens of him not liking the Pacers anymore because of those negotiations and not him praising the Bucks. And I think as of the day you and I are talking, I haven't listened to it yet. I've only seen clips on the internet. He went on the Thanalysis show, which is the greatest name for a podcast of all time. And it's the same thing where it's like, some of them when he was directly talking about Pacers players, that's different. But like Milwaukee praise gets, and some of it is, I believe, actually indirect shots at the Pacers, but some of it is not. And it's interpreted that way. And that's fine. Fans are allowed to feel however they want, and they don't like it. They don't like how he's spoken since at the press conference in Las Vegas about the grass being greener and, going to a contender after being half a game from the finals. Like, if you're a Pacers fan, that's going to hit you weird, right? So there should be a tribute video. I mean, 10 years is a long time. Yeah. And he played very well for them for a long time. But I wonder how much it will be cheers versus boos. My hope, I guess, as a person who talked to Myles Turner a lot, would be that it's cheers after tribute video, boos when the game starts. Yeah. But I don't expect that to be what happens. I think it's going to be
overwhelming boos. You think?
I don't think overwhelming. Like, I think people still really respect what he did for the team, but like I don't know any fan who has been like, yeah, I get what he's done the last 3.5 months. Even though
I don't want the Bucks to win, but I hope Myles Turner.
Yeah, like I haven't heard a single one of those, right? Of course, that's part of it too that I didn't even say. He didn't leave and just leave. Like, he went to the Bucks after how the last few years have gone, right? So it's very layered and there's a lot to it. And I think if you're a fan versus an analyst versus whatever, how you feel about it is basically just related to that. But that makes it hard to predict the reception because he has earned cheers, to be clear, earned them, right?
Yeah.
He did not play well in the finals. Like, a lot of fans were like, this is good that he has gone. And now their center rotation is not going well at all. Like, there are real fans who thought that, but he played well for 10 years. Like, that is a huge, significant deal in the NBA. When they drafted him, I could not legally drink, right? Like it was a long time ago. And I don't know that the reception is going to be that. And I do expect there will be boos given how, again, since it's gone since July 2nd.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like what we here in the Milwaukee area in Wisconsin have experienced on the opposite end when Craig Counsell left to go to the Cubs, because, you know, we've talked about this rivalry between the Bucks and the so like, where would you rank this as a rivalry? Because Bucks fans will say, like, yes, it's a rivalry. I'm not saying it isn't, but I think it's stronger on the Bucks side, as with any rivalry, because the Bucks haven't won those last 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think that the deeper hatred for the other team is the team that has lost, and like. Obviously, it'd be very easy for a Bucks fan to cope about why with injuries and all these things. But like the Pacers have been better, which is weird because, as you know, for the first 8 years or whatever of Giannis versus the Pacers, it was like a free win for Giannis. Like they won every time.
In fairness, it was Giannis versus every team in the Central.
True. It was like they won the one time when Thad Young shut him down in like 2017 or something, and then every game after that the Bucks won. It was like 12 in a row or something. And then the Pacers all of a sudden were like, "Oh, we got this figured out. We got this." And then they, outside of early last season, we're like, "Yep, we can handle the Bucks." And so, yeah, I think fans view it as a rivalry because of how often they've played. And if you'll remember, like Jordan Wara played for both teams, and he was the guy who was like, "Oh, it's not a rivalry until we play in the playoffs." Okay, great, you did that. And then the NBA Cup happened and all that. And of course, Oscar Tshiebwe somehow still cemented in the middle of this for Game Ball Gate. What a day that was. So it's not necessarily just that they've played all these big games. It's that like real stuff has happened. John Haliburton after Game 5, like real rivalry seeding things have happened. So Pacers fans also view it that way, to be clear. But I have a feeling it is deeper dislike in Milwaukee than Indiana.
Yeah. And maybe it started to shift now in the offseason with what happened. Possible, yes. I was talking with someone with the team just before the season started, and it was about a week or so before the schedule was released, and he was telling me, like, I think people will be very pleased with the opener that we get. And I didn't even think about Chris Middleton, which in some ways, like, there's a comp there too, although Middleton was traded. He didn't opt to leave via free agency, and he won a championship. But I didn't even think of that. I was just like, whoa, we're getting the Pacers as the home opener here. And man, and just thinking of the visual too of, wow, what if opening lineups come out, Myles Turner makes his entrance, he comes out through the tunnel and he's got a bag with him, and people are like, what's in the bag? And he pulls out the ball, and it's Oscar Tshiebwe's ball, and just hands it to Giannis. And that's how
good Lord,
the Myles Turner era began.
Justin, you are admitting that you were into wrestling with this kind of this kind of showmanship.
Yeah, but I'm just curious what the reception was. Like, I was trying to think of what's the similarity here on the Bucks and I mean, I can't really think. Ironically enough, I guess the closest you would see, but nobody faulted him on the Bucks side, was Malcolm Brogdon when he left to sign that as a restricted free agent with the Pacers. But it wasn't even.
Wait, he actually is part of the story too, because if you'll remember when that happened, the Bucks had a bunch of financial restrictions or something that summer, right? And they signed Chris Middleton, and then everybody they could have still kept Brogdon, like, legally, right? Yeah. But they would have been like super expensive. That was what it was.
And they arguably would have won the championship the next season if they had another ball handler against Miami Heat. But nonetheless, it
was. I believe that was the specifics. And so when the Pacers and Brogdon agreed, then there was this like second layer thing where ownerships chatted and were like, wait. Instead of making restricted free agency the worst for you guys, let's do a sign and trade and give the Bucks a first round pick that ended up being RJ something. He wasn't any good.
RJ Hampton. Which, a classic.
And the Bucks traded the pick right,
in that era that they didn't retain anyway. So yes.
Yeah. So whatever, like, on the result of that, but that happened. And so when Myles happens right this summer, first of all, before we knew the Dame thing, I was like, are the Pacers getting Kuzma? Like, how is this even legally happening? And then we learned that
must have been so thrilled.
It was a weird morning, but it was, I don't even know that I had emotions about it because it was such a short amount of time before it was like, oh, it's actually Dame is getting stretched. What? And so I think a lot of Pacers fans were like, oh, well, this sucks, but maybe this will become a sign and trade because remember the Bucks and Pacers owner. Now, granted, the Bucks have different ownership since the Brogdon thing happened, but I think some Pacers fans.
Well, I mean, there's been layers that have changed, but
yeah. But it's like not the layer, but a major layer. And so whatever. You would know. Way better than me.
But Jimmy Haslam isn't the governor, right?
Bucks listeners are like, dude, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. So regardless, I think some Pacers fans thought like, oh, great. They have this awesome ownership relationship. Like, even if it's just for a trade exception or like getting a second or something. And then the Bucks like didn't even humor that. Right. So it's like another part of this that makes people in Indiana like, what? Like, this sucks. Like, what happened? So it just, there's so many people involved in this. Oscar Sheba, Jordan Nwora, and Malcolm Brogdon have all come up today. Did you expect that?
Sorry, and like the Malcolm Brogdon thing too. Now I can't remember all the details too, but the bitterness on the Bucks fan base side was everybody liked Malcolm Brogdon, and there was two camps of Malcolm Brogdon versus Eric Bledsoe. Which one should you keep? I think in hindsight, the Bucks did make the wrong call there, but they had already locked up Eric Bledsoe that spring leading into free agency. So once that happened, the writing was kind of on the wall that you knew Malcolm is probably gone here, but also the way they handled the sign and trade, like the biggest issue that Bucks fans had with it was there was no trade exception that the Bucks got back in that deal, which also could have helped them out come trade deadline to help supplement that team. So yeah, there's just for a decade now, close to it, been just this weirdness between these two teams.
That was a decade ago.
Well, I mean, what?
It's close, right?
6 years ago, so we're halfway there. Yeah,
almost 7.
Man, time is certainly a thing here. All right, so a couple of things that we've noticed from Myles Turner, and you and I talked about it when he signed here and just what to expect, but there's a couple of things that have stood out so far. One question I have about what you've witnessed through the decade in Indiana too, and in some of the splits that we've seen. We'll get into that as we continue to get set for Myles Turner's emotional return to Indiana coming up next. Is this a blessing in disguise? Like, you don't have Haliburton this season. It's a pretty good draft. Like, see if you can strike the lottery here and get a really good draft pick and then retool for next season.
We'll find out how they feel about that. Maybe not actually, but like in mid-November, check on the Pacers because a couple of things. One, they'll be healthier, presumably, given some timelines of players. But two, their first 10-game schedule is like brutal. Like, people were predicting they would start 2-8 before they knew of all these non-Haliburton injuries, or 3-7 here at least. So this actually could be a decent time to lose all your players. Maybe you go 2-8 anyway, and then you're not actually that far behind when you're healthy. If they get to mid-November and they play Toronto, Utah, Charlotte, Toronto again, Washington, Chicago. I guess Chicago's actually good. By the end of the month, like if their record is bad by the end of November, then it might be like, oh man, like where do your priorities actually go? Because like I ran through the whole schedule game by game. I thought they'd be 1-3 right now. They're 0-4. Okay, like whatever. It's one game difference. But if by the end of the month, it's like that month, it's still looking rough for they're wandering. Yeah, then you got to really talk about where you're going and what's going on.
Yeah, and I would just remind you, 2-8 is not a death sentence. It still sets you up to make the playoffs and lose in the first round.
As the Bucks know well from last year, right? That's a good point. I'm actually going to use that on Locked On Pacers several times. I was going to ask you a question though. Were the Bucks like supremely hurt after their title the following year? Because Rick Carlisle has brought up now that not only the Pacers really hurt, the Thunder are also very hurt at the moment. Yeah, and I think the NBA is more demanding now than it was 3 years ago. But like, how hurt were the Bucks the following year?
It got interesting. So, I mean, like the big one is that was the year that Brook Lopez missed 2/3 of the season. And that like was just the utter mystery of he played on ring night. He looked good. And then they played in Miami game number 2 and got blown out by like 50 points or something. And Brook wasn't there. And it was like Brook was an Iron Man. I think he had missed 3 games total in his previous, that was his 4th season in Milwaukee leading up to that. So everybody's like, wow, that's weird. Brook's already missing a game here. And then it was just this mysterious out indefinitely. So like that was a big piece of it. And it just forced you to have to do things like playing Sandro Mamukelishvili much, much earlier and having to really lean on him, Giannis and Bobby minutes. And that was last year, that duo was good. back then it was not. They just, for whatever reason, the numbers weren't pretty together. And a few other guys missed like around your 15-ish games total. But it did feel like it was a team that was fatigued as you got, because I think it was twofold with the Bucks.
COVID timing was different too.
Well, yeah, like the calendar was different. And plus you had Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton played in the Olympics. So they win the championship. 3 days later, fly to Japan, play in the Olympics, and basically got 3 weeks of an off season before the season started right back up again. You could just see as the season went on, it felt like a team that was kind of saving themselves and preserving themselves for the postseason. And then, the injuries, that's when it started with Chris slipping on the wet spot. And
this is an awesome team in retrospect.
I still will go to my grave.
Boogie, DiVincenzo, Serge Ibaka, Semi Ojeleye, Rodney Hood. This team is awesome.
Semi Ojeleye.
I thought Semi Ojeleye was going to be good. That dude was a brick wall.
We all did. We thought Semi Ojeleye and Rodney Hood's an interesting signing too. Now, at least they flipped them and were able to use that for trades.
And hey, people forget Bucks legend Luke Cornett was on that team.
Luke Cornett was on that team. The Boogie one was very polarizing. There was a lot of Bucks fans that were like, how are we not retaining this guy? A lot of others that watched the games and looked at the numbers and said, no, this does not fit our defensive culture here for this group. And you had the ill-fated Dante DiVincenzo traded to the Kings in a 3-way deal for Serge Ibaka as the Brook Lopez insurance, because they had just re-signed, or they had just re-upped Grayson Allen and knew like we're not going to sign Dante, so let's get some Brook Lopez insurance here.
Looking back at this on Basketball Reference, Bobby Portis was the only guy to play over 67 games.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to regurgitate these things to Pacers people at some point.
It was just a worn down team, and then when Chris went down to, as like we were both kind of saying, it sounded like I will still go to my grave saying if Chris Middleton doesn't get injured, the Bucks win the championship that season again. At the very least, they're in the finals. When they lost to the Celtics too, which in hindsight, how the hell did they take the Celtics to 7 games?
Yeah, that's
just Giannis and no offense. But when they lost that, you could just see it felt like they were disappointed, but like the weight was off of them now. Like, all right, now we get to rest. And that's been the biggest shame in these last few years was I think every single Bucks fan watched that series and that performance through the playoffs and just felt like, we're obviously bummed that they lose in the second round after just winning the championship, but that team went out on their sword and that team went out fighting. So can't wait to see what next year brings. I'm not going to say they weren't fighters the last 2 years, but it was not the same feeling as that year. 3 years for that matter, when they lose to the Heat in the first round the next year.
Yes. What a series that was. I'm out of title hangover questions. The Bucks or the Pacers didn't win a title, but post finals hangover questions.
Long story short, you guys are set up for the 1 seed next year, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Maybe it means it's another first.
You heard it here first, everybody.
Should be an interesting one in the arena Monday night. Bucks and the Pacers. You're
coming, right?
Scheduling conflicts.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I did. I will say this as we start to wrap here. So I had time set up with each of the players on media day, and I only got like 30 seconds with Myles, and he was supposed to come back afterwards for something else, but never got that revisit from him. So Myles Turner was like, Myles and obviously one other guy who wasn't in Milwaukee were the two guys I didn't get extensive time with. But when I did briefly talk with him, I did mention, like, I know Tony East pretty well and sends his regards. He had no idea who you were.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding. So Tony's the best was his message.
He was very nice to me at his press conference, which I personally, Pacers people kept saying, "Oh man, you were at that presser," and I'm like, "Yeah, what'd you think?" And they were like, "Yeah, he said a lot of weird stuff." I'm like, "The weirdest thing he said was that he thinks I'm a good dude." So, among the many things he said, that was probably the worst, right?
Yeah, like I'm just curious to see now in the days that lead up to it, like what media, if any, Myles Turner does leading up to it. what the actual tribute video is going to be like. What if they don't even give him one?
They have to, dude. You have to. Dude, people get it for nothing now. Like legitimately nothing.
Yeah, I mean,
Sabonis got one for the Pacers, and he was there for 4 or 5 years. And he was obviously like a higher peak, but did not make the finals, didn't win anything. Like Turner's getting one.
Yeah, and just the post game too. Like there's going to be a lot of Indiana reporters in the Bucks locker room after that game too. So
Eric Name and I are best buds, so we'll be following each other around all day.
It's going to be fascinating to see what that reaction is for Myles Turner, and I think too to see the emotions of Myles Turner, because he knows what he's done with some of the things he said and taken but like now you're back there in it. So like, how are you going to deal with this? And especially if it is, a majority of boos or at least like 50-50 jeers that you're dealing with, like what do we see from Myles Turner in that aspect of the game, if that's the case?
It'll be fascinating. It'll truly fascinating.
It'll be fascinating. It just makes this matchup between these two teams all the more interesting. It's always something new with these two teams, the Bucks and the. I got some John Haliburton stories too that we can get into on a future recording. In my experiences,
I hope he goes. Not because it'll be weird, but because it'd be good to smooth over. Like just by being there, it'd smooth things over a tiny bit. Just go.
And like I think. I didn't anticipate to go down this road, but fine. I brought up the name. So like, I think John Haliburton plays the role too. Like that's not who he really is. He leans into the character that you see and that you experience in the arena. Like everybody in Milwaukee has seen him and taken pictures like, oh, there's Tyrese Haliburton's dad. Like he loves that. And he really plays into it. So I think that's a lot.
He's like a ref legend in Milwaukee, right? He like refs a bunch of
young. In Oshkosh. Yeah.
He refs a bunch of games. Yeah.
All right, should be a fun one. Myles Turner making his return to Indiana, and you, of course, will break it down on Locked on Pacers. We'll do the same on our show as well. Always good to catch up with you, Tony.
It's a great time. They don't go to Milwaukee till February, so I'll see you at some point this season.
Yeah, that'll do it for today's show. For Tony, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow.